Superman, the Man of Steel, the original superhero and the one that all others are measured up to. He's the ultimate symbol of not just what a good hero should be, but what a good person should be. And yet, people f***ing hate this guy. Throw a rock on the internet and you'll hit article after article after article discussing why Superman sucks, why he's not as cool as his contemporaries, why he's not a good hero for the modern world. But how can that be? How can a character that's been around for 77 years suck? If I were to guess, I would say the idea of Superman being a bad character started around the early to mid 2000s. It didn't matter whether you read the comics or you only knew him from the movies and TV shows. In a contemporary world, Superman just felt like a part of an old time, a relic. The biggest criticism about Superman is that he's boring. He's a boring character. And I'm sorry, but when did fighting space monsters, shooting lasers out of your eyes, and playing fetch with your space dog all of a sudden become boring? But let's really go deeper. Why do people think he's boring? He's too powerful and can't be hurt with no real weakness. He's too good, too clean cut, no internal conflict going on with him. He has no real good villains except for maybe a bald billionaire. Okay, let's break this down. First off, yes, Superman is a ridiculously overpowered character. But he also gets his ass kicked a lot. He may be able to cause hurricanes by breathing and move planets, but only when he needs to. The rest of his time, he keeps his power levels really low, and as a result, he gets beat up a lot. In fact, that's a big part of his internal conflict, keeping his power levels low enough so as to not harm those around him. It's a tough balancing act when you think about it. Speaking of his internal conflict and him not being as conflicted or Batman or Spider-Man, or him being too clean-cut goody two-shoes, so? Not every character is Batman. It's okay to have just a purely good guy on your team sometimes. Just because a character is clean-cut doesn't mean he can't have any internal conflicts. I mean, look at Captain America the Winter Soldier. Superman is often finding himself questioning what he does. Action Comics 775, Whatever Happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way, by Joe Kelly, Lee Bermejo, and Doug Mahnke, is all about that. And the work that Greg Pak and Aaron Kuder are currently doing on Action is all about a Superman who's not so black and white anymore. As for his villains, he has a lot of really good villains. The movies have just done a really bad job of showcasing them, I think. And also, the whole point of Lex Luthor is to be Superman's exact opposite. He's a self-made, arrogant jerk, whereas Superman is a naturally gifted, humble, nice guy. I think one of the biggest problems with Superman's image have actually been the Christopher Reeve movies. As great as they are, they've cemented this idea that Superman has just no problems, or any conflict he comes across can be surmounted easily for him. No matter what, the big budget Hollywood movies are going to color what the general public think of Superman. And from 1978 all the way up to Superman Returns in 2006, the general consensus has been he's been this way too good, way too powerful person who really has no conflict in his life, either internally or externally. And modern audiences don't want that. They want this tough, hard-as-nails badass who isn't afraid to kick ass and take names, who isn't afraid to get mad and get angry and brute if he has to. This is a post-9/11 world with heroes like Jason Bourne and Jack Bauer. And if you think about it, we did get that Superman with Man of Steel. Seems like we don't even know how we want this character to be handled. We need to remember that the movies aren't our only source for Superman, that there are other sources that show that the classic style does work. I'm talking mainly the excellent Bruce Timm animated series and, obviously, the comics. Not saying that all of Superman's comics are good. Hell, most ongoing comic book characters don't have a lot of good stories, especially ones that have been going on for 77 years. That said, somebody who's been around as long as Superman has also has a lot of gems in his history. Now, it can seem at times that DC doesn't want to push the classic all-American style Superman, especially in the wake of the New 52 when he got this disaster of an outfit and became much more angsty. Or the Dark Knight 3 variants, where a lot of them is just Batman beating Superman up. But you gotta know where to look. A great place to start would be the Adventures of Superman digital series that DC put out a few years ago. This is classic style Superman in simple but effective stories that were just good. It was pure, classic, wholesome fun, and it worked. Of course, there's Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman, what many consider the quintessential Superman story, and I always like to recommend anything Jeff Johns does with the character. But for me personally, Action 775 offers the definitive reason of why Superman doesn't suck the way he is. I'm not gonna lie, I used to be a Superman hater. I used to think he was uncool or out of touch or needs to be more badass. But I was lying to myself, and reading Action 775 reminded me that just because those ideas are good for other characters, they don't work for Superman. And honestly, I think the reason why people don't like Superman is because he's supposed to be better than us. Think about it. We say we like flawed characters because they may have flaws that we have, or they may do things that we do, like get hurt or feel pain. But Superman really isn't supposed to be relatable. He's more supposed to be inspirational. We're supposed to look up to him. He's more like our leader than our friend. And we worry that Doomsday may kill him or that he can't save Lois in time. But that's because if he fails, that shatters our expectations of the character. The idea that Superman can fail is supposed to be scary. If he fails, then who do we have to look up to? Who will be there to save us? If he can't save us, who can? And good writers know how to take a character like Superman, who's essentially invincible, and put him in fun, interesting adventures with a great supporting cast and an interesting conflict. Whereas a bad writer will just make him boring. And that's really all there is to it. So what do you guys think about Superman? Do you think he's boring? If not, what are some of your favorite Superman stories that prove otherwise? Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet. I've been wanting to do this episode for a while. I was going to actually save it until next year when Batman vs. Superman came out, but I would like to thank the Almighty Lantern who spoke to me on Twitter and asked me to do this as soon as possible, and I'm glad I did. And while this video is basically me refuting the standard claims of why Superman is a bad character, Crack.com did an excellent video explaining why the society of 21st century America has sort of rejected Superman as its hero. I'm going to put a link in the description to that. You should definitely check that out. And as always, like if you like, subscribe if you really like, share this video with a friend. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you next time. Whenever there's a movie based on a popular franchise, there's always rumor and speculation over who's in it or what's going to happen. Sometimes these theories make sense, like a certain actor will have a cameo or certain events will lead into a possible sequel. But sometimes they're just so outlandish, they can't possibly be real. They're going to roll out exclusive content, exclusive to YouTube Red, where creators will create specifically for that platform.
Exactly. When they have stuff like that, that is going to get kids to want it because they're going to want to see what PewDiePie's up to with Robert Kirkman.